These are the Nothing Headphone 1s, Nothing's first ever over-ear pair of ANC headphones. But can they live up to the bar that Nothing's other audio products have already set? Let's find out. What's up, internet? I'm Brian MacDuff, aka BMac, and welcome to another video. So yes, indeed, today we are going to be taking a look at these bad boys right here, the highly anticipated Nothing Headphone 1s. But how does Nothing's first attempt at an over-the-ear pair of headphones actually stack up? Well, let's discuss. First things first, I do need to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Nothing for actually sending out a pair of these Nothing Headphone 1s for me to be able to check out, use, and enjoy. So Nothing, thank you. Appreciate you. But with that having been said, there are a lot of things to talk about and address with these headphones, so let's get things started, as we usually do, by talking about the obvious, that being the design of the Headphone 1s, and how these bad boys are looking on the outside and on the inside. The first thing you're gonna notice about the Headphone 1s is, of course, the bold and unique design. What you're getting in the Headphone 1s is a design very Nothing-esque with that see-through aesthetic, very much on brand with the rest of the Nothing product lineup that we're used to. And what this means more specifically is, of course, going to be the head-turning rectangular ear cup design with rounded corners and the oval-shaped backplates and earpad cushions. You're also getting a sleek friction adjustment kind of system here, with the upper headband actually hiding into the lower part of the headband when you're adjusting it to give it a minimalistic kind of feel. And the rest of the headphones themselves are going to be made out of a clear polycarbonate material and anodized aluminum to provide a very luxurious and premium look. These materials are going to cause the Headphone 1s to weigh in at 329 grams, which is perhaps slightly heavier than your typical pair of headphones, but still not nearly as heavy as some of the other headphone alternatives that use similar materials. And listen, at a glance, you're probably either gonna love or hate their design. There's probably not gonna be a whole lot of in between. For me personally, I kind of love it. They're very much giving off retro vibes, while at the same time also feeling and looking pretty futuristic. But functionality-wise, how do they hold up? In my testing, I actually didn't witness any kind of ear fatigue when I was wearing these for multiple hours. I didn't and still don't experience any kind of pressure points, and my ears don't seem to get overly sweaty. And once I found the right headphones fit, they feel great, they sit comfortably, and they feel like a pair of headphones that I could wear for multiple hours on end without any kind of issue. But to get there, you do need to find the right fit, which might take a little bit of adjusting. I probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more padding on the headband itself. It's a little short and a little thin, in my opinion. But the thing is, the fit on these headphones is so much more important than just comfort. Because you see, I have found the Nothing Headphone 1s to be very seal sensitive. And what I mean by this is if you have ANC or transparency mode turned on and the bass and the volume turned up, I have consistently faced some bass distortion going on if that seal around your ear is not just right. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but I have a hunch that has something to do with the ANC tuning that's causing that bass distortion, which I'm going to guess is caused by the ANC trying to overcompensate and misfire as a result in the bass region if that seal around your ear is not perfectly intact. Some of this could be in part because of the PU diaphragm material, which we'll talk more about in just a few seconds, but I do think this actually has more to do with the ANC tuning, because the minute I turn ANC or transparency mode off, the issue completely goes away. Hopefully this is something that can and will be fixed in a future firmware update, but for now as a workaround, just make sure you play around with the fit a little bit and make sure that that seal is intact. Otherwise, don't be surprised if you hear that bass distortion when you have things turned up. But back to the overall design here, we are getting some physical buttons on the Headphone 1s that are gonna allow you to take control of your experience with them. On the rear side of the right ear cup, you are getting a paddle button, which is pretty cool. That's gonna allow you to skip forward, fast forward, backtrack, or rewind your music, as well as answer, hang up, or decline phone calls. The paddle is a little awkwardly placed. I found that I actually have to look to the left to have easier access to it with my right hand here. Not a big deal, but I do find myself having to do one of these to be able to access it. But above that paddle, you're also getting a pretty cool roller button that, yes, obviously will roll, but also actually clicks in. And what this gets you is a one press control for playing or pausing your music, and a press and hold gesture that's gonna allow you to toggle noise control, and of course, rolling either forward or backward to adjust your volume. You're also getting an additional button on the top right-hand corner of the backside of the right ear cup, with a single press or a press and hold function here that's gonna allow you to do anything from invoking your voice assistant to toggling noise control, spatial audio or EQ modes, or even muting yourself when you're on a phone call. The last thing I will mention is that the headphones do come with a soft shell travel case here, but the headphones design itself does not allow for them to actually fold down. The ear cups are gonna swivel to allow the headphones to lay flat, and that's the way you're gonna put them into their case, which makes them a little less travel friendly, but still not terrible if you look at how thick it is. Not a big deal in my opinion, but something to keep note of if that is of concern to you. But in terms of colors, you're getting two beautiful Nothing Headphone 1 colors to choose from, those being a simple white color or a black color. Personally, I think the white color shows off the see-through aesthetic a little more, but they both look great. And in terms of what's going on the inside of these headphones, in the Nothing Headphone 1s are gonna be 40mm dynamic drivers that provide a frequency range from 20 Hz to 40 kHz. The diaphragm material itself is gonna be made out of a PU or polyurethane material, which in and of itself is by no means a low quality material, but it isn't necessarily considered one of the more premium materials for diaphragms these days either. Other headphones in the market do have diaphragms made out of more rigid materials, which could allow for a little bit more improved sound quality, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Before we get into sound quality, let's go over some of the connectivity features of the Headphone 1s, and how you can use them across your different devices in your everyday life. The Nothing Headphone 1s do offer support for Bluetooth 5.3, which offers rock solid connection over a long range. And with it is also gonna come support for the SBC, AAC, and LDAC audio codecs. I was a little surprised to see LDHC omitted here when we have Nothing flagship earbuds offering LDHC support right out of the box. But speaking of omitted features, another feature that you're not getting on these headphones that you do get with some of the earbuds is ChatGPT integration. It is not a feature I use a whole heck of a lot anyway, but still a little odd to me how you have earbuds that are at a lower price point offering two features that the flagship headphones aren't offering. You're also getting multi-point connectivity on the Headphone 1s, which is gonna allow you to connect to two different devices at once, as well as on-ear detection for automatically playing or pausing music. And for you gamers out there, there is also a low latency mode supported on these headphones. In my testing, the low latency performance still sat around 200 milliseconds, which is pretty on par with the low latency performance that we've seen with other Bluetooth headphones, but it's still a little bit far from what I'd consider to be ideal for actual competitive gameplay. But as an alternative, you do actually have the ability of listening hardwired, by the way. Do keep in mind, however, that that audio jack is not passive, so the Headphone 1s will actually need battery power and need to be turned on to be able to use it. And on top of that, whenever you're using a hardwired connection, the headphones are gonna default to their balance EQ setting, the one that they should be defaulted to right out of the box. So it'll ignore any kind of EQ adjustments or custom EQ settings that you've set up on your wireless connection. Last but most certainly not least, you do have the ability of finding your Headphone 1s if you ever misplace them by emitting a loud tracking sound from them, as long as you're connected to them and within Bluetooth range, which is gonna be done through the companion app. But there is no map tracking support here, no Google Find Hub support or anything like that, so don't go losing these outside of your Bluetooth range because you're not gonna see them on a map, and the only way to actually track them down is through that sound emission. And like I just mentioned, there is a companion app. That's going to be the Nothing X companion app that gives you all these customization options for the Headphone 1s. I love the app, by the way. You could use it on either Android or iOS, and it makes it feel like you're actually using a Nothing device, even if you're not, so pretty cool. Love the app. That's your companion app. Make sure you use it. But now, of course, let's get to the moment we have all been waiting for, that of course being the breakdown of the sound quality of the Nothing Headphone 1s, and the kind of listening experience you could expect to get out of them. First and foremost, the first thing we have to mention is the fact that the tuning on the Headphone 1s has actually been done in collaboration with KEF Audio. This is definitely a partnership that Nothing seems to be quite proud of. It's even written right on the backside of the left ear cup. But right out of the box, I'm gonna be honest, I was a little disappointed by the listening experience on these bad boys. Full disclosure here, I think the bar that I set for the Headphone 1s was so darn high because of how much I love the listening experience on the Nothing earbuds. But with the default EQ tuning on the Headphone 1s, I found that the balance just wasn't quite as stellar as I was hoping it was going to be. Starting out with the bass, I did find that the bass was there. It was low, there was sub bass, it was rumbly, it was impactful, but it definitely seemed to muddy the mids a little bit, and the mids and the highs in general were just a little too recessed right out of the box, so things weren't really balanced. More than anything, I guess they just didn't quite sound as expansive as I was hoping them to. And so having said that, I definitely did need to take advantage of the EQ adjustments that you get with these headphones. There are 4 EQ settings that the Nothing headphones ship with that you could use right from the app, but thank goodness for the advanced equalizer that's also built in, because that's where I was really able to go in and fine tune all the changes I wanted to make to bring these babies much closer to what I was hoping and expecting expecting them to be, again, right out of the box. So what exactly did I do? Well, I gave a slight scoop in the lower mids, and then I also boosted the higher mids and the treble. Felt like that more or less balanced things out a lot more nicely and gave me a much more desirable listening experience. So even though this is the first Nothing product with sound tuning by KEF, I'm not so sure it was executed perfectly here, because in my opinion, there's definitely a little bit of EQ tweaking you need to do to these to get them to sound the best that they can. But they are a solid first generation over-ear headphones offering from Nothing, even if they aren't perfect and do have some flaws, but with some subtle changes that you can make them pretty great. There is also a spatial audio mode here on the headphone ones that you could toggle on through the companion app, both with and without head tracking. But we all know, I think spatial audio on headphones or earbuds could be completely hit or miss. And on the headphone ones, it's kind of a miss for me. It doesn't sound horrible, it just sounds rather plain. It actually sounds a little too much of it like an echoey tunnel-like experience. Sounds like you're listening to music in a small tunnel. I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like the way it's implemented specifically on these, but worth trying out, I guess. Now, another part of the sound quality equation that I consider is gonna be active noise cancellation. And on the headphone ones, you're actually getting 42 decibels of noise reduction across 2000 hertz. Pretty solid. But in actual real world testing, that's where I was actually very happy with the ANC. Once again, putting aside for a second those ANC issues with the bass distortion we keep talking about, looking at the ANC just at itself at face value, how it cancels ambient noise, it does a great job. The ANC did an impressive job of canceling out almost all of the environmental noises that I put to the test around me. Everything from running water, to keyboard clicks, to wind rustling in the leaves. It is really solid ANC performance. But on the flip side of ANC is of course transparency mode you do get on the headphone ones. And just like the ANC, I felt that it was also very well executed on these headphones. Some environmental noises still sound a little muffled with transparency mode turned on, but things definitely did not sound overly digital or fake. There's also an adaptive ANC mode built into these, which I am gonna make it a point to use more and more, because what it could actually do is actually adjust the level of active noise cancellation, potentially bettering your listening experience. But speaking of these ANC and transparency modes, Nothing is pulling this off with 6 total microphones, 3 built into each ear cup, 4 of which are actually gonna be used in a 4-mic environmental noise cancellation architecture specifically for when you're taking phone calls. So in case you were wondering what the microphone quality is like on the Nothing headphone ones, here's a few demos for you. This is what the microphone quality of the Nothing headphone ones sounds like. This is raw audio recorded directly from the headphones into the voice memos app on my iPhone, so hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of what to expect. This is what the microphone quality of the Nothing headphone one sounds like with some simulated wind. This is raw audio recorded directly from the headphones into the voice memos app on my iPhone. So hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of what to expect. This is what the microphone quality of the Nothing headphone one sounds like with simulated background noise. This is raw audio recorded directly from the headphones into the voice memos app on my iPhone. Hopefully this gives you a pretty good idea of what to expect. Pretty solid mic performance there if you ask me. Things could get a little funky from time to time, but in general, I'm happy with the mic performance on these. But I know what you're probably wondering, with all these features we're talking about here, what's the battery life like on the Nothing headphone ones? And how long can you actually expect them to last for? Let me just say that the battery life on the headphone ones, point blank, is no joke. Nothing is actually promising up to 80 hours of AAC playback with ANC off, or up to 35 hours of AAC playback with ANC turned on, or up to 54 hours of LDAC playback with ANC off, or up to 30 hours of LDAC playback with ANC on. And you will also get up to 53 hours of talk time with ANC off, or 37 hours of talk time with ANC on. So needless to say, those are battery life numbers that you could be really happy with. Plus, when the time comes to recharge the headphone ones, they do offer quick charging, whereby just a quick 5-minute charge could actually get you 5 hours of non-ANC playback, or just around 2.5 hours of ANC playback, with a full 0 to 100% charge only taking around 2 hours. By the way, little side note, if you do plan on listening hardwired via USB-C, it is also nice to know that you could also simultaneously charge the headphones while you're listening to them on that USB-C connection, so nice little bonus feature there. But with all this having been said, here are my final thoughts on the Nothing headphone ones, and whether or not they live up to the high bar that Nothing itself has set for its audio products. At the end of the day, the Nothing headphone ones are a fun, exciting, and bold first generation offering in an already crowded headphones market by bringing a unique design, impressive battery life, and solid ANC performance. The KEF tuning is a little underwhelming right out of the box, but with those EQ tweaks you can make, you could bring the sound quality much closer to where your expectations and preferences are, like I was able to do, and that allows these headphones to be a pair of headphones that I definitely would grab for my next music listening session. The biggest issue is still gonna be that bass distortion flaw we talked about earlier, but I'm holding out hope here that we're gonna get some future firmware updates that could at least somewhat alleviate that issue. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to make sure that you get that right fit with the right seal when you have ANC or transparency mode turned on. The Nothing Headphone ones are not perfect. They are not the best of the best, but they are solid and very much in the conversation for headphones to seriously consider. One little side note, the only thing that I think is amiss here is no implementation of any kind of LED or glyph interface on the headphones. That would have been so cool. Yes, it would have drained the battery, but I mean, if there was a glyph interface on these things that maybe at least just interacted somehow with your music or whatever the case may be, that would have been awesome. But regardless, I'm very excited to see where the Nothing Headphones line goes in the future because these are fun, they're exciting, and for a first generation product, pretty solid. As always, for the latest deals, prices, promos, and information for the Nothing Headphone Ones, you could of course always head to my affiliate link, bmac.link/headphone1, or of course, as always, there's gonna be clickable links in the video description box and in the comment section below, so check those out. I'm gonna go walk down the closest street wearing these bad boys, see how many people I could get to actually look at me because of how unique their aesthetic is. This is gonna be fun. I will see you guys in my next video.